Hello, boys and girls. It's Miss Schmidt. Last week, Mr. Swafford introduced you to some cool wild animals, and before that, I introduced you to some adorable pets. This week, it's your turn to show us that you know the difference between pets and wild animals. First, let's review. When you think about pets and wild animals, what do you know? You already know that pets and wild animals need the same things: shelter, food and water, and to be cared for. But the most important thing to remember is wild animals can take care of themselves, but pets need us to care for them. Pandas can make their own shelter and find food, but cats and kittens need us to feed them and keep them safe. Here is the learning target for this lesson. I can identify pets and wild animals and explain my thinking. You'll get the chance to say if an animal is a pet or a wild animal, but you'll also tell us how you know. Let's practice. I'm going to show you some animals. Think about what they would say. Will they say, I am a pet or I am a wild animal? Here's number one. What would the lion say? He would say, I am a wild animal. You got it. What would the hamster say? The hamster would say, I am a pet. Did you pick pet? Good job. What would the turtle say? Now this is a tricky one. Think carefully. He would say, I can be a pet or a wild animal. You can have a turtle as a pet, but turtles also live outside. Did you guess that right? Way to go. You're an expert on this now. But how do you know if an animal is a pet or a wild animal? You've been learning that. And here are the sentences you can use to explain it. I know a blank is a pet because blank, and I know a blank is a wild animal because blank. Time to try out these sentences on some more animals. Number one. I know an elephant is a blank because blank. Let's think. I know an elephant is a wild animal, but why? Well, it's big and it wouldn't fit in my house. Because it's so big, it lives in big open fields called a savanna. So my sentence would say, I know an elephant is a wild animal because it lives in the savanna. Can you try a sentence? A goldfish is next. I know a goldfish is a blank because blank. I've seen goldfish at the pet store, so I know it's a pet. But what else do I know? Goldfish live in water just like other fish in rivers and oceans, but goldfish live in a tank or a fish bowl. The goldfish can't go find food to eat. I have to give it food. So my sentence would say, I know a goldfish is a pet because it can't get food on its own. I have to give it to him. What would your sentence say? And last, a bird. This looks like another tricky one. The first picture shows a bird in a cage, but the second picture shows a bird in a tree. What do you think that means? Yes, a bird can be a pet or a wild animal, just like a turtle. The pet bird has a cage and bird seed. A person gave that to the bird. But the other bird made a nest in a tree and is feeding its baby. It doesn't need a person to help. So my sentence would say, I know a bird can be a pet or a wild animal because some birds need you to take care of them and some birds can do it by themselves. What would your sentence say? put your thinking to the test. I'm going to show you two animals that are the same, but one is a pet and one is a wild animal. Can you tell which is which? And most importantly, can you tell how you know? Let's start with lizards. Which is a pet and which is wild? The first is a pet and the second is wild. Did you get that right? Now think about how you know that. I see one lizard is in a tank and one is outside. Does that help you? To explain how I know, I would say, I give a pet lizard shelter in a tank, but a wild lizard lives outside. Next are rabbits. Which is a pet and which is wild? The first is wild and the second is a pet. Did you get that right? How do you know? What do you see? I see one rabbit has a food bowl and the other is in the grass. To explain my thinking, I would say, a wild rabbit eats grass outside, but I give food to a pet rabbit. And last is the turtle again. Which is a pet and which is wild? The first is a pet and the second is wild. I bet you got that one right. How do you know? What do you see? Just like the lizards, I see some turtles in a tank and I see a turtle walking around outside. To explain how I know, I would say, a pet turtle needs a tank for a safe shelter, but a wild turtle is outside and uses its shell as a shelter. I bet you did a great job on those sentences. Let's practice our reading with a book about wild animals and the food they eat titled What Animals Eat. This is a level C book, so you can read it along with me and I'll read the tricky words. Then you can go back and read it by yourself if you put the video on mute. Cows like to eat grass. Munch, munch. Birds like to eat seeds. Crunch, crunch. Pandas like to eat leaves. Munch, munch. Frogs like to eat insects. Zap, zap. Monkeys like to eat fruit. Slurp, slurp. Seals like to eat fish. Gulp, gulp. Goats like to eat everything. Hey, stop! That's my sock. Hey, stop! That's my shoe. Hey, stop! That's my book. Did you notice how all the animals got their food? They did it themselves. What does that mean? That they are wild animals. Okay, now it's your turn to show us your thinking by writing how you know an animal is a pet or a wild animal. Draw one animal that is a pet and write the sentence, a blank is a pet because blank. Then draw one animal that is a wild animal and write the sentence, a blank is a wild animal because blank. Then post your picture. Extra dojo points if you post a video reading your sentences or explaining your thinking. Here's my example. A cat is a pet because a cat needs me to give it food. I drew a cat in a house because that's where it lives, and I drew the bowl of food that I give it. A bear is a wild animal because a bear catches fish in the river. I drew a bear where it lives in the forest, and I drew the river with fish that the bear catches. All right, time for you to get started. We can't wait to see your thinking.